Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast, hosted by myself, John Keir, and my one and only co-host, Austin Davidson. How you doing, man?
Hello, I'm doing great. How about you?
Not too bad. We are recording late on a Saturday night as we approach Week 9 of the NFL season, the full Sunday slate of games. Obviously, Thursday night football has already been played. We are at the unofficial halfway point, if you will, given that the NFL season is now spanning 18 weeks. So after this week, we'll be halfway through the regular season slate for the most part. And man, it always goes by really quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, the football season it's one of a kind. It just goes too fast, but it's the perfect amount where it's so interesting. It's going too fast.
It always leaves you wanting more, I believe is how you say.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, obviously there's been a lot of news this past week, so much so that it feels like our last podcast, which was recorded on Sunday, feels like really old news. So I don't know if you want to start with the Aaron Rodgers situation or the Henry Ruggs news, but obviously there's a lot to get to tonight, so I figured it'd be probably best to get all of that addressed, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I don't have a preference on what we start with. Both are sad in their own regard, but one a little bit sadder than the other.
Alrighty. Well, I guess first, why don't we start with the whole Henry Ruggs situation? So, Henry Ruggs is facing some legal action, at least two felony counts. I think there's several more actually, as well as a misdemeanor following a car crash in Las Vegas on early Tuesday morning, the wee hours around 3:40 in the morning. A car crash that left a 23-year-old woman and her dog unfortunately dead, where Ruggs was seen as impaired by the officers that responded to the scene, and he was also booked for DUI. So the 22-year-old Henry Ruggs is facing multiple charges on top of the fact that he also had a loaded gun in the car, and driving under the influence. He was driving up to 156 miles per hour prior to the accident, and the airbags were deployed at 127 miles per hour, and he had a blood alcohol concentration level of twice the legal limit. So very sad news. Obviously a very poor decision on the part of Henry Ruggs. There was also a passenger in the car, his girlfriend, who was injured as well, but the loss of a life of a young woman and her dog, which will change the lives of, obviously, her family forever. Ruggs' life has been changed forever, and obviously this young woman's life has ended very needlessly due to Ruggs making a very, very poor decision. And, the results of this accident can hopefully serve as a tool and a good example for what not to do or what can happen if you make the wrong choice, but you hate to see that something like this needs to happen at all. And as far as I understand, this is the third time that a NFL player has committed this sort of crime that has resulted in the death of another person. I know that it happened with Dante Stallworth something like 10, 11 years ago, and it happened, I think, one other time in the late 90s. So those are the only recent examples I can think of, and just an unbelievably awful tragedy, and my thoughts and heart goes out to the victim and her family in this horrible time, and I hope that we can all not soon forget this situation, in the hopes that we can all remember this not just when we are in a situation similar to Ruggs where we might be impaired and need a way to get home, make the right choice, but also whenever someone you know or someone you care about is in that situation, because it could always be you or someone you care about that's on the receiving end of something like that.
Yeah, don't drink and drive, people. It's I don't give anyone a pass for that. There's no reason to drink and drive in today's age. There's so many options. Just don't do that. It's really stupid. I even worse when you're a rich person who can afford basically anything with rich friends and all that. And then on top of it, and I don't know if you're aware of this, I found this out by just looking it up. The NFLPA has an agreement with rideshare services that NFL players could get rides for free. Like they could just do that. Like even though they're already rich. So, just
that was available before Uber, by the way. That's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's to try and keep something like this from happening. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't work. You made a very, very poor decision, and unfortunately, it resulted in someone's life being lost, and that's really sad. And I feel bad for the family, and my condolences go out to the family. There's not much else to say. Just don't drink and drive.
And beyond that, a very, very small part of this that's also sad and unfortunate is that you have a guy like Derek Carr who was at his press conference was basically like saying and wondering, like, did I do enough as a teammate and friend? He was basically questioning, like, did he not know that he could have called me at 3 a.m. and I could have come picked him up or something like that. So obviously that's a very small part of it, but also something that your actions and your choices impact other people, and that's another aspect of that another example of that needs to be, people need to keep in mind when they're making choices like this. And we all make mistakes, we're human, but this is one that can't happen. It just can't happen.
Yeah, I don't have anything further on this matter.
And it's tough to transition from this to, well, really anything else to talk about, but obviously that was the big news that was going on throughout the NFL, and involving an NFL player and being such a horrific incident, it had to be discussed, I thought. So we appreciate our listeners for bearing through with us on that. And beyond that, there's a couple other big headlines that are going on throughout the NFL. And then I think the big one that's come up the last couple days is the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to be missing Sunday's game against the Kansas City Chiefs due to testing positive for COVID-19. However, that's not really the big deal. What the big deal is that because he's going to miss this game and because of when he tested positive, people could put 2 and 2 together and realize that he was not a vaccinated player. And you might say, well, what's the big deal? There's a lot of NFL players that aren't vaccinated. And, well, from that standpoint, that's true. However, Aaron Rodgers essentially, he didn't technically say, but he really led people to believe, based on a press conference that he said when he first attended training camp back in August, that he had gotten his vaccine. He said he had been immunized. But what he meant really is that he got a homeopathic treatment from his doctor, his personal doctor, and was trying to make that count as a vaccination status for the NFL, and was getting it appealed by the NFL office to see if that he could technically count as a vaccinated player even though he didn't get the shot. So the NFL eventually denied that appeal, and he was considered unvaccinated even though he had essentially told everybody in that press conference that he was. So even though he can try to say that he didn't lie, he did lie. And therein lies the issue. And he went on the Pat McAfee show the other day and kind of sounded like a complete, for lack of a better term, asshat when trying to talk about it. And, there's a lot that can be talked about. There's a whole lot of politics that are involved with the vaccine these days. But I will just leave it at this. I don't have as much of an issue, as much as I would want everyone to have the vaccine whenever they are able to. I have less of an issue with people like Cole Beasley who outright say that they don't want the vaccine and they won't take it. I respect someone that at least is loud and is saying something like that and does everything else right when it comes to wearing their mask in the facility, as opposed to a guy that is acting like he is vaccinated when he really isn't, because lying about something like that seems just worse to me. So I don't know where you want to take it from here, Austin, but I just wanted to make sure I pointed out that I really do not appreciate the way Aaron Rodgers handled this, and I didn't have a super high opinion of him before, but I really do not now.
Yeah, I would like to go from here and look at the NFL scope of this, because there should be actually some punishments coming from this, because he, as far as we know, he followed protocols for the most part, except for one, and he literally pointed it out. When he did multiple press conferences, when he's supposed to wear a mask, it was required, he didn't, and he was not vaccinated, and that's going to likely result in at least a look from the NFL. I don't know who's going to get fined, if it's the Packers organization and him, or just him as a whole. Usually it's the organization, both of them at the same time, for breaking this. And they tried making a big deal out of this year. They said that if there was like any problems, like they were going to handle it. So for this NFL scope, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know if this is justifying a pick strip from the Packers for just what Aaron Rodgers did. I don't think so, but who knows? When the Saints celebrated in the locker room last year, they took away their 7th round pick. I think they ended up giving him back though, but still. So I don't. They sounded like they were being tougher this year, so it's something to monitor for the NFL side of things on what this will lead to, if anything. Maybe the NFL was bluffing.
Keep in mind, we should also be putting pressure on the league itself, because seeing as how they denied Aaron Rodgers his homeopathic treatment, counting as vaccinated, that means they knew that he was unvaccinated. So who was doing the policing? Was it the team or was it the league? Let's think about this here. Aaron Rodgers more or less was trying to hold the Packers organization hostage this year, and has been trying to get away from the team, and only decided at the end that he wanted to come back right at the death of things. Could you envision a scenario where if he gets suspended for like 4 to 6 games, that he just retires?
I could see it. Can. Yeah, he has no. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL to ever play. Already, likely should be heading to Canton, regardless of if he retired now. So, or not. So he really has nothing else. And I mean, he married rich, so money is not a struggle. So,
not officially married yet, from what I understand.
I thought he was already. That's my apologies.
Well, I just think that he hinted at retiring this offseason. I think that if there becomes a situation where he gets into trouble with the league, I could easily see him retiring or something of that effect, and I think the NFL might be scared of him doing that because he's a premier player, which that's really my only explanation for why the NFL handled it the way that they did. Obviously, they knew about it. I mean, how could they not? And with Aaron Rodgers being the way that he is, being the sensitive person that he is, why didn't they say or do something or try to find him when he was doing all these press conferences with the media this year with no mask on? And that's the policy. You have to wear a mask during these press conferences when you're unvaccinated. So, you say what you want about it, but he broke protocol and broke it a lot this year. And this is the first we're hearing about it, is when he went, tested positive. Why was something not done sooner is my question.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. It's going to be interesting to see who they determine made the mistake. Because again, if that's on Green Bay to monitor them as an organization rather than the NFL, it is almost certainly going to result in some big fines or a big suspension or something.
It also seems silly, from my point of view, for the NFL to just let teams police themselves. That doesn't make much sense to me.
No, it is more than likely on the NFL themselves, but I don't know. I don't really understand why they wouldn't have handled it quicker either, if they knew.
Yeah. The NFL loves to make a mess of situations, but regardless, no, it'll be Jordan Love's first career start this week. And beyond that, of course, we have possibly a second start for Jordan Love 2 weeks from now, because Aaron Rodgers' first day back, assuming he doesn't have symptoms beyond the 10-day window would be next Saturday, which means he'd have a walkthrough prior to being able to play in the game the next day. So, do you really think it's possible for Aaron Rodgers to play in the game next week? I think it's more likely he misses this week and next week.
Yeah, there's a good shot that he misses the next 2 weeks, but we'll see. I think that if he has to come back Saturday, he'll still play Sunday.
So, with Jordan Love playing, what are you hoping for, I guess?
Jordan Love probably got the best situation he could going up against, as funny as it sounds, going up against Kansas City. It is one of the worst defenses in the league, so I'm expecting him to show something. The Packers drafted him pretty high.
Traded up for him too.
Yeah, they traded up for him, and I mean, it basically started rolling off sensitive Aaron Rodgers. It was a big move that pissed him off. So, I want to see something. Like, I kind of he has to throw at least a touchdown in this game, and I'm hoping for more to see if he's worth anything. The Packers haven't seemed very confident in him because they didn't tell. Obviously it's hard to tell a franchise quarterback to go kick rocks after what Aaron Rodgers did this offseason. But to me, they weren't confident enough in Jordan Love that they basically said, "We're sorry, Aaron, please come back for one more season." So, I hope to see just some good things. I hope he doesn't mess it up completely.
I'd love to see him light the world on fire like Patrick Mahomes for a couple weeks.
That'd be awesome.
Then things could get a whole lot more interesting, but let's see if that happens first before we even get there.
Yep.
All right, and then probably the third biggest headline, which would probably be the top headline any given week in the NFL season outside of this week, is that the marriage between Odell Beckham Jr. and the Cleveland Browns has ended in an ugly divorce. Obviously, Odell Beckham Sr. released a video on YouTube last week after the loss to the Steelers, which I find hard to believe that he edited. In fact, I almost 100% believe he did not have anything to do with it, just posted it on his account. A video of every time Baker Mayfield missed an open Odell Beckham Jr. over the last few seasons, clearly showing his displeasure with not being a bigger part in the offense, and as a result, the Cleveland Browns essentially told him the other day to basically stay home and not come to practice because he was being that much of a locker room cancer. So the Browns made the decision to release him, and he will pass through waivers on Monday after a renegotiation between the two sides has led to a reduced salary so that teams may be more likely to claim him.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused on how it works. I think it's kind of like, you know how voidable years are a thing now? I think
it's similar to
I
that,
think they
yeah.
did it because it's conditional. If it changes, if no one claims him, then the contract changes. Is what I heard. Because obviously, if someone claims him, they just inherit the contract, and it's no longer the Browns' problem. There's a good chance he doesn't get claimed though. There's a lot of talk about him being claimed, but a lot of people didn't want that contract. Originally, I gave the Browns brass a lot of shit because it's like, you did this the day after the trade deadline, and then I went back and kind of looked, and it's like, well, there were people actually saying he was involved in trade talks. More than likely, no one wanted his contract. It's just he's not that good of a receiver anymore. Me and John agreed that he's at best outside the top 30, and for John, as you said, you consider him outside the top 50 more than likely. So, it's no one wanted that huge contract for a wide receiver like that. So I don't know if especially for someone that's known to cause drama. So I kind of took away my blaming some of this on the brass, but wow, has the Odell Beckham experiment not gone how Cleveland would have hoped? It's a rare lose trade where the Giants got 2 first-round picks and did nothing with them, and then Jabril Peppers is solid, and then Odell Beckham did nothing. So quite the interesting time for him in Cleveland.
Yeah, definitely an odd situation. And the way the offense is built, it's not really a haven for a wide receiver, given the fact that it's a power running team, built in a lot of play action, and has several useful tight ends there. Just a strange situation. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a big Odell Beckham Jr. fan. I'm not saying that he can't return to at least some form of prominence, but the years where he was a dominant receiver, it only spanned like 3 years. The first 3 years of his career, and he had one more good year after that. He's spent more time either injured or has not been a good receiver, compared to what he was before. So, I mean, I don't know. I will say that I've read reports that said that he had actually requested a trade in the offseason. So if that's true, I really got to question what the Browns were doing waiting this whole time. They couldn't have gotten anything for this guy. I mean, I have my questions about him too, but I still would have imagined that some team would have given up a pick for him at some point this offseason or preseason.
Yeah, okay. I should amend my statement because I'm pretty sure I said last episode that they should have traded Odell before the season started. I still think, literally even going into the season, they could have gotten a first for him, even in the offseason. Just a first, and they might have had to give like a team like back like a seventh or possibly a trade up from like 5 to 6 to get that first, but I still think they could have done it. Baker Mayfield plays better without him. Like the statistics are just better. I feel like I feel like a lot of it is can be coincidence, but I feel like it's not coincidence in this case. Like it's just he wasn't good for the team. He wasn't a good fit, and they should have really worked on that earlier.
What do you? I mean, how can you explain that? Is it as simple as chemistry? I mean, chemistry is something that gets thrown around a lot, but do you think it didn't work in this instance, or do you think it was just a situation where they're just, I don't know, like it seems like teams aren't putting any effort into trying to take Beckham Jr. away. He's not the focus for defenses anymore. Do you think it's more of an issue of just chemistry, or do you really feel like one or two of those components, Baker and Odell, are just not that good?
I think it's chemistry. I actually do think that Odell Beckham is going to go to a team and be better than when he was with the Browns. Because when you watch that video that was put together, there is some fair stuff in there. Like there's some fair, misses where Odell Beckham is actually beating his man, and it probably should have been targeted. I think it's going to help. I just think there was a bad fit and bad chemistry, and it's two guys that are their personalities. Both Odell and Baker have personalities. They're dudes. From what it sounds like, they haven't been getting along for a long time. The way Baker made it sound, like he said, I'm not surprised or something like that when this happened, but I would like to talk to him or whatever he said. They sounded like they probably butt heads a lot because of how they are and who they are. So I think it was a good move for both sides. I do think Odell Beckham is not going to be out of the league after this season. I think he's still got some time as like a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 somewhere else. I think he's going to do a little bit better than he did when he was with Cleveland.
Where do you think he ends up?
It's a good question. It depends on his contract, what he agrees to. I don't know if he's going to try to go to a competitor. To me, teams that make sense, if he's trying to go to a competitor, he seems like a guy, I've been thinking about it, he seems like a guy that would be set on revenge. I could see him going to Baltimore if he agrees on a very reduced contract, because Baltimore needs wide receivers. They're a competitor. AFC North can stay there, and I think that. But more than likely, the number one team that I think of, because I think he would be best on a team where he's not the number. So to me, teams like Baltimore and the Saints aren't going to help him. And that's where I think the Saints is one of the most popular for him. I don't think that's good for him. I don't think he's really set to be a wide receiver 1 anymore. He needs to be a complement to someone. And that being said, I think Green Bay would be a good option. I think
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think behind Devontae Adams, that would be solid. Because, I mean, you could argue that, oh, yeah, Cleveland had Jarvis Landry. To me, I think both those wide receivers, I never liked them. Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. But I, at one point, thought Odell Beckham was like a top 5 receiver for a little bit. So, like, Jarvis Landry, I don't think I ever considered top 5 wide receiver. I don't think he ever hit that. Devontae Adams, definitely a top 5 wide receiver, and right now. So, I think he could play really well with him together. Other locations could be like the Raiders, but he would kind of be wide receiver 1 there. So I don't know how I feel about that either. They are definitely a competitor still, based on their record. I don't know how long they're going to keep up that record, but they could still compete, and adding Odell might help. I'm not sure. But yeah, so I think Green Bay makes the most sense, and if he agrees on a smaller contract and is out for revenge, I think Baltimore makes sense.
Do you believe that 2 negatives can make a positive?
Matt does. I don't know if I do.
I'm just saying because it feels like the Raiders have had so much going wrong lately, obviously with the whole Ruggs thing and the whole Damon Arnett situation, which we didn't even talk about. Not to mention the John Gruden thing, which has quickly become old news. But would OBJ there like just make sense? What about the Bills?
The Bills would be solid. I could mess with that, where he's behind Stephon Diggs. And they're definitely a competitor as well. Yeah,
I just don't know if McDermott would want that.
Yeah, it's tough because you have to be willing to invite drama into your locker room. You have to be willing to take that with you, because this is how Beckham has always been. So you have to risk that by bringing that into the locker room.
And I think you have to combine that with teams that really view themselves as needing that one extra push, and I feel like the Bills probably think that they don't need that. So that's why I think like a team like the Packers or the Saints makes sense.
Yeah. Fair.
All right. Excuse me. What else is going on? Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of the Saints, we already talked about Jameis Winston. He's out for the year, and so is wide receiver Michael Thomas, who, man, Thomas suffered an injury right after the opener last season and hasn't played since. What a tough blow for him.
Yeah, that's tough. It was a garbage time injury too. The end of the fourth quarter, and he just hasn't recovered. He suffered another setback, and he was expected to be coming back around this time, and just he's not making it. They shut him down for the season after he got a setback with his ankle, so that sucks for him. I really liked him as a receiver. He started to annoy me as a person, kind of reminded me of AB, but still a really good wide receiver when he was healthy.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is his did he get a big contract?
He did. He got paid. He got, I think, his $18 million average annual value. Or he might have been 20 after Julio. I don't remember.
I was going to say it'd be interesting if he wasn't, to see if he'd want to go to another team, but I guess that's not going to happen.
I mean, before this all happened, there was talks about how he wanted out. So I mean, there's still a chance.
Still
of that.
Up in the air.
Yeah.
What else? Von Miller got traded. I know Dom was sad.
Yeah. Von Miller got traded to the Rams for a 2022 second and a 2023 third. The Broncos in the trade retained most of the salary to be able to get those picks. That was kind of a shocker. The Rams don't care about their draft picks. They said, screw those draft picks. We want players. And it's a strategy. It's something. They're the only team really doing it this way, doing it this much. But it makes a pretty good defense even scarier. So that it might be enough for them to push for a Super Bowl. It might have made them better than the Cardinals. I can't wait for that rematch of the Rams Cardinals, assuming Kyler Murray will be healthy for that one. But yeah, the Rams look scary on defense.
Yeah, and this situation of this team constantly trading away picks and going for well-known assets and using the later picks that they keep to have backups and role players where they don't have to rely on high draft picks. Certainly very interesting, and time will tell if this policy works. I mean, if it works, in your opinion, like what has to be done for the Rams for it to be a success? Is it a Super Bowl?
I think they have to. Like, the way this kind of works is it doesn't let you really rebuild if you're not good. If the Rams just are not good one year, it's going to really, really suck for them. I don't know what they're going to do. I think, well, honestly, it seems like they recycle players a lot. Like, they'll take players that they have and then trade them for picks back again, and they don't really mind about that either. So I guess there is a way to salvage it if they keep that up, like where they take players like Marcus Peters and move them and stuff. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they keep it up over the years, and if like if Matt Stafford says, all right, I'm done, I'm starting a decline next year, we'll be able to see like how they handle it.
There is something to be said for the fact that, yeah, they might not be able to rebuild, but maybe they can always keep trading those first-round picks for something, too.
Yeah, but don't they not have a first-round pick till, like, 2024 now?
Possibly.
But
obviously, they're in it this year. They should still be in it next year, so the earliest you could see a bad year is, 2 years from now when they have a pick? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's certainly interesting. We've never seen this in the NFL before.
Yeah, it's definitely new, and yes, they traded 2022 and 2023 first in the Matt Stafford. Trade. So their next available first is 2024.
Speaking of the Rams, they released wide receiver Desean Jackson, who, even though he's 34, was making some big plays this year. I'm kind of surprised that he wanted to leave. I guess he feels like he could have a bigger role somewhere else. I mean, I'd love to have a speedy receiver like that in Pittsburgh, but I don't think that's going to happen for a multitude of reasons. But another interesting free agent. I guess not a free agent. He has to pass through waivers first, but I find it hard to believe he won't be claimed by somebody because his contract is cheap.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he really wanted out, because it did come from him. He's on a contender. He's not a starter, but he's still getting paid. So, like, I don't really know what the issue is. Like, I don't think he's going to get more money somewhere else. Like, I'm assuming someone's going to claim his contract, like you said. And if no one does, I mean, that means he's going to be paid less now. And it puts him on a chance to what? Go on a team that might be also contending? I don't really understand that. He could contend. I guess he could contend on a team where he's more of a contributor. Excuse me. Sorry. I don't really know what the end goal with Jackson was, or maybe he just had a problem with someone in the Rams. I have no idea, but I guess we'll see where he goes.
And then finally, the man, the myth, the machine, the exception, Derrick Henry, the only running back in the league that matters, is going to miss the next 6 to 10 weeks after having surgery on his foot. And the expectation when recovering from his injury and surgery is that it usually leans towards 10 weeks. So the Steelers are not going to see him in their regular season game this year. Huge loss for the Titans, and I guess we'll see just how important Derrick Henry is to this team. But, man, that guy is unlike any running back I've ever seen, and I actually do think that losing him will hurt this Titans offense quite a bit. And, even though they've beaten the Colts twice, I wouldn't say that it's impossible for them to blow the division. I still don't think they will, but the door has been opened slightly.
Yeah. This injury does suck. I mean, Derrick Henry was having an MVP year. To me, Henry was the MVP up until this point. No quarterback has been playing out of his mind where I felt like he deserved crazy consideration. Henry was playing out of his mind. Henry was absolutely lighting it up and definitely deserved MVP conversation. I'm sure that if the league ended last week that it would still go to like Josh Allen, the quarterback. But I thought that Henry was the MVP so far through the year. So that sucks. Losing a guy that doing that well sucks. I have a weird hope for the Titans. I don't want to make it sound like Derrick Henry was holding them back, because he definitely was not. He was carrying that team. However, I think without Henry, they swear that the play calls aren't going to change. I think things are going to change a little. The past 2 weeks, we saw A.J. Brown come back to life, kind of, for this season, and he had a slow start. And I think if Julio Jones gets healthy, I think Tannehill can kind of establish himself like he did last year, where he was was a much better passer with Henry gone. I don't know if I am ruling the Titans out as a contender still. I think that losing Henry, losing an MVP, it sucks, and I have to see how they respond to it. But they kind of have the pieces to change their offense completely on a dime and still be a decent offense. It's a lot of contingencies because Ryan Tannehill hasn't played as good as he had the first couple seasons with the Titans. Not so far this year. A lot of that has been, though, relying on Henry, is because Henry's been so good. I think taking away that crutch that he had to rely on Henry could force him into being a better player this year. We'll have to see, though. It's kind of like a bizarre thing where I think that they could still be a good offense without Henry, but they have to change their identity completely. But they have the pieces to do that, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm just spewing nonsense at this point.
Derrick Henry's current stats would leave him for like a good running back season if they played the whole normal 16 games, and he'd only be like half a season in right now, which is just wild to think about.
Yeah, I mean, MVP before.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly the front runner in my mind. And losing him, the Titans are going to be replacing him with a combination of Jeremy McNichols. Was he a guy that one of us looked at?
I don't think so. Not me, anyway.
And Adrian Peterson, the free agent running back, at 36 years old, is coming back for another go at it. I wouldn't expect him to play much this week, but he'll be receiving a lot of the early down work for the Titans. And, I mean, he's certainly not prime Adrian Peterson, but who knows? Maybe he still has a little bit left in the tank. I believe the 6th all-time leading rusher.
Yeah, apparently they liked what they saw really quickly. That was the report, is that they liked what they saw. He looked really good, and they immediately put him on the not just he wasn't elevated from the practice squad for just one game. They put him on the 53-man immediately. So maybe he's still looking good. We'll see.
All right, and after all that, we can finally get to the Steelers news and get ready to talk about that game now that we're a half hour in. Well, obviously the Steelers play host to the Chicago Bears. The Steelers have not beaten the Chicago Bears since Ben Roethlisberger's second season, the year the Steelers went on to win the Super Bowl. And in fact, that win was the first of 8 straight wins that led the Steelers to Super Bowl 40. And I brought this up because I wanted to see if you know. Did you see what I said?
Yeah, I didn't know who the quarterback was for the Bears that day. I remember the other two in the previous 2 games was Glennon and Jay Cutler. I didn't remember the 2005 game.
Yeah, so was Jay Cutler with the Bears in 2009? Yeah, he was. Okay.
Was he?
He was, yeah, because Kyle Orton was with the Broncos at that time. Anyhow, the whole Kyle Orton, Jay Cutler with the Bears thing. So the Steelers have played the Bears now 4 times in the Ben Roethlisberger era. And this will be game number 5. Mike Tomlin has never beaten the Bears. It's one of the few teams he has not beaten, losing there in 2009 and 2017, and losing at home to them in 2013. I do remember the games against the Bears quite well. This team has had trouble offensively with them over the years. And that last game in 2017 was quite a hailstorm, if you will, with the whole anthem controversy with Villanueva at the start of it, and then the Bears running for like 1 billion yards, it felt like, in that game.
Jordan Howard elite.
Tariq Cohen also elite in that game.
Oh, I forgot Tariq Cohen. My man.
Mike Glennon threw less than, I think, 20 passes. Actually, I think he threw less than 10 passes.
I'm pretty sure he only had 101 yards that game.
And Net turned it to like 70, I think, too.
Yeah, he had 15 completions on 22 attempts for 101 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
That game was the start of the Eli Rodgers banishment, too, if you remember. He was like the starting slot receiver, and then he fumbled the punt return and was basically, at best, a part-time player until he got cut in 2019.
Bring back Eli Rodgers. Hashtag.
We will always be on that hype train. TM. So, okay, well, the Bears, a team that has been really searching for a franchise quarterback, well, really forever, since the Sid Luckman days back in the, 50s? I mean, they've had some good players, but Jay Cutler has been the best quarterback that they've had in this era, and he just really hasn't been he wasn't all that great. He was a league average quarterback, realistically speaking. They hope that they have found their guy in Justin Fields coming out, their first-round rookie quarterback, and he started all but 2 games this year, and for the Bears, it just has not been good offensively. A boatload of struggles with him processing throwing the ball, turning it over, and the offensive line hasn't helped him by getting him pressured constantly. And the running game minus David Montgomery has been hit and miss, but generally just not. They've had a ton of yardage, but outside of a few big games by Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery, they haven't been a very good offense. They've given up 30 sacks already this year and have the second fewest points per game in the league. So a rough offense for the Chicago Bears. But, let's start with Justin Fields. How do you feel about him, knowing what you know about him before the draft and where we are with him right now?
He looks all right. He looks okay. I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen enough from him yet. There was the game against the Raiders. I'm like, oh wow, okay. Like he looked really good. He was making those deep completions. I'm like, oh, maybe I was wrong about those Ohio State quarterbacks. Maybe this is gonna be the first one. And then like, other than that, like I haven't seen like anything. I mean, like it's been pretty like lackluster. Other than that one game where I developed that one opinion. So he might need more time. He might need a better offensive line to help him because obviously they suck right now. They're not doing a good job, but he also does have weapons. Allen Robinson has been underutilized, and I don't know if that's Fields' fault or Allen Robinson just sucks this year. I think it's Fields' fault, personally. I just don't think he has that rapport with Allen Robinson yet. Darnell Mooney's been solid for him, but overall, I don't know how I feel about Justin Fields quite yet. I think I'm on the not good train so far, but there's potential there still. It's only his sixth game as a starter, so he's got plenty of time to show more going forward. In his rookie season, I don't think he's doing so hot right now.
Well, it's tough because it feels like so much is going wrong. So whose fault is it really, right? And that's, the blame game gets constantly thrown around. Whose fault is it really? Is it wrong to say it's really everybody's fault?
Yeah. A lot of people hate Matt Nagy. They say his play calling sucks. And I think that could be fair. I think that is fair. A lot of people blame him.
I think the thing with Justin Fields that's really struggling right now is processing time. How is he processing things? It feels like he's getting into a lot of trouble and he's bailing out of clean pockets. I just think that he's making a lot of bad plays, a lot of negative plays, and the plays that he makes that are good are really spectacular, but I don't think he's making enough of them to offset the bad plays he makes. He plays like an unhinged Russell Wilson, in my opinion.
I could see that. Yeah, he does kind of play similar to that.
And, we talked before about Russell Wilson being upset with his offensive line. Doesn't Russell Wilson contribute to that a lot, too? So, I don't know. There's a special talent there at times with Justin Fields. You can see the great plays like you were just talking about, Austin, but the consistency just has not been there. And I don't know, this team and this offense, it really just feels like Matt Nagy's on borrowed time, and once he gets fired, maybe that's when we can see the true growth from Justin Fields. But what is being gained from him playing right now? I guess you have to keep throwing him back out there, but I feel like, at least with the Browns game, if you have games like that, I feel like you're hurting him, not helping him.
Yeah, this year's kind of a punt for the Bears, I feel like, but I guess they're trying to evaluate what they have. Maybe for the next head coach that comes in to see if he's the guy. We obviously saw what the Cardinals did when they had, oh my God, I can't even remember.
Josh Rosen.
There we go, UCLA boy. They immediately said, new brass came in and they said, nope, we're not dealing with this. He's garbage, and they got Kyler Murray, and it worked out. But so I guess he's got to play for that purpose too, for next year's evaluation, to see if they can roll with him going forward with new staff. I'm assuming Matt Nagy's getting fired after this season, if not mid-season. So, yeah. So that's not really a good reason to play your rookie quarterback. But I guess Andy Dalton is not the better option anyway. So I don't know. I guess it makes more sense.
And, well, what about Mr. Nick Foles? Did you forget about Nick Foles?
I did forget about Nick Foles. He's not playing this game, so I forgot about him.
Has he played at all this year?
I don't think so. I heard he was in trade talks at the end of the at the end of the trade deadline, but I don't think he's played at all.
Elsewhere on this offense, you talked about Allen Robinson not getting a lot of work this year. Cole Kmet's been okay. Darnell Mooney's been fine. This offense really feels like it runs through David Montgomery, who should be back, and I guess we should transition into the injury report then. David Montgomery, currently on injured reserve, was designated to return, has started that window. He's trending towards playing this week, according to Matt Nagy. What does him returning do for this offense?
Oh, I love David Montgomery. I think he's a really good running back, but I'm not sure how much he adds because in the games he's been gone, right? Khalil Herbert, the last 4 games, 72 rush yards, 100 rush yards, 97 rush yards, 75 rush yards, and then before that, Damian Williams is technically the starter before he got COVID, then hurt. So their rushing attack hasn't been that big of a deal, but I think that having a change of pace running back and Khalil Herbert behind David Montgomery will give, because they were already trying to do that. They had Tariq Cohen last year before he tore his ACL. I think he's still hanging around on IR. I think he might come back this year too himself, but it might give them a little bit more of a different rushing attack because David Montgomery's a bowling ball. He's more similar to Derrick Henry or Najee Harris in the sense that he's going to run into people. He's going to fight for those extra yards. And I like him as a running back. I think he's really solid. It's a 4th round running back. That's my kind of back. That's my kind of running back right there. So I like him. I'm not sure how much it's going to change their offense because, as I said, their rushing attack has been solid. Actually, they're 6th in the league in rush yards per game. Some of it's from Justin Fields himself, but as I pointed out with Khalil Herbert, he's been handling himself pretty well so far as a late round running back again. So, I think overall what David Montgomery adds is I think he's a better pass catcher. Through the past games that Khalil Herbert has gotten to play, he got 5 catches in one game for 33 yards, and then he got 2 catches for 15 in another. Then this previous game he had 2 catches for -4 yards. David Montgomery with the ball in his hands is a little bit better, I believe. I think that they have a more dangerous receiving back out of the backfield with David Montgomery. That is somewhere I think he adds. I think he's a better pass blocker than Khalil Herbert. But so that's where I think David Montgomery is going to add. I think with David Montgomery back, you get change of pace back. You now have a bowling ball and a guy that's just kind of fast. You have a better receiving back, and you have better pass blocking, which you kind of need when your line plays bad. I'm not sure how much a running back is going to make the difference in pass blocking, but hey, we saw that Najee Harris made that difference on the Pat Freiermuth touchdown, so it can make a difference.
And that running game is going to be huge for the Bears. You know, it's interesting. A lot of runs for Justin Fields, almost all of them are scrambles. Very few designed runs. If I were the Bears, I'd think about trying to run him a little bit more in this one. But the fact that it's almost all built off of scrambles is pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, you don't really see that as often with a guy hit that mobile. You usually see some design plays, but yeah, I agree. A lot of his are just from scrambling around and just him deciding it's time to tuck it and run.
You think that plays into the Steelers' hands? I know they've had trouble with mobile quarterbacks in the past. However, we haven't really seen guys that just scramble recently. You know, with the NFL changing the way it does, usually the guys that can run also have designed runs, but not so much with Fields.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the Steelers this year haven't had a real big problem with scrambling quarterbacks. Obviously, Baker Mayfield got like one run last year, but last week, or is it last week now? It is last week. Wow, I'm really all messed up with this new recording schedule. But yeah, I feel like it hasn't been a problem this year. Maybe it's the type of quarterbacks the Steelers have played, but I think that they're handling it better this year than we've seen in previous years. But we also haven't played the Ravens yet, and that's like the biggest test of how well you can handle a scrambling quarterback or a quarterback that runs. Different because he's designed runner, but it's still a hard task because he could scramble when he wants to, Lamar. So I think the Steelers have been handling it better than previous years so far.
Up front, the Bears' offensive line has been a struggle this year. Larry Borum, James Daniels, Sam Mustlifer, I believe is how you say his name. Cody Whitehair, and Jason Peters. Peters struggled when he first started this season with the Bears, but has kind of rounded into form. Still an offensive line that you look at the Steelers' front seven, and you think the Steelers should be able to overwhelm them pretty consistently.
Yeah, I think this is Borum's first game back from injury. I think that he got hurt really early, I remember. And I think this is going to be his first game back. Still shocked that he's remained as a tackle at the NFL level. That was a guy I looked at this year. I actually really liked Borum, but I liked him as a guard. He was a tackle in college. I didn't think he was going to be able to make it the NFL level, but he's someone to be excited about for the Bears. I think before he got hurt, he was actually playing decently. He was one of the better ones, which I don't know how much that says because they were all playing bad, but he might be a little bit more helpful than Elijah Wilkinson, who had been stepping in for him when he was hurt. Or whoever, I think they shifted around because Jason Peters was hurt at one point as well, so they had to move people around a lot. But yeah, Borum being back is one of their might be solid for them. Might make their line a little bit better, even though he's a rookie, and from like the fourth round. I think they went sixth. I confused my own rankings with where they actually went in real life, but yeah, overall it's still a offensive line that the Steelers should be able to handle pretty clearly. I mean, they've given up 30 sacks regardless of who was playing and who wasn't, and I mean the Steelers' pass rush has been really good this year.
We touched a little bit on the receivers. The tight end room is actually kind of deep. They have Cole Kmet, the older Jimmy Graham, former Steeler Jesse James. The only injury in the tight end room is J.P. Holtz. He will not play, but a pretty good, if not unspectacular, tight end room and a receiver room with a lot of names. We just talked about Allen Robinson. Darnell Mooney has appeared on the injury report, but there's also several players like Marquise Goodwin, Jakeem Grant, Demir Byrd, Rashad Perryman. A lot of names, but not a ton of production this year.
A lot of speed. I mean, when I think of Marquise Goodwin, Jakeem Grant, and Rashad Perriman, all I think is speed. Not necessarily great wide receivers, but fast. Darnell Mooney, I really like, and Allen Robinson, he's just had a down year, but I still really like him regardless of his production. I mean, he's really down in the receiving stats this year, but I still believe in him. And I mean, Darnell Mooney, we never got to the injury report, did we? We did.
No, I realized that we hadn't, so I kind of started. We worked in Montgomery, so I just worked in Holtz and now Mooney, since those are the only guys on the one side. When we talk about the Steelers' offense, I figured we could cover the rest.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's fair. So Mooney is a groin boy. He is on that injury
groin
part.
club.
Yeah, he's in the groin club. He was a limited participant on Friday, and then a limited participant again on Saturday. He got injured during practice because he didn't start the week, as on the report. Without him going, I could totally see Allen Robinson finally getting his, get back to it game if he's like the guy, because Fields has liked Mooney a lot more this season. I don't know if it's because I'm gonna be straight up. I haven't watched that many Bears games this year. I watched the one against the Raiders, and that was a good game, but other than that, I haven't watched that many. But Fields seems to prefer Mooney, and I don't know it's because of the matchups or what. But if Allen Robinson is like the guy, I could see him having his first big game of the season.
And as far as I'm trying to remember. Demir Byrd was with the Patriots last year. The Patriots receivers just didn't do much last year.
No. Yeah.
When it comes to Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm not very familiar with Bird.
When it comes to defending this team, again, you should have the advantage on the front. I guess the way I see it is just don't give up explosive plays and tackle well. Don't let them run the ball, and you should be able to play things well into your hands. There's no reason to think that this team should be able to move the ball with consistency unless if you fail to contain Fields and you let them win on first down.
Yeah, this offense should be containable. I mean, you look at their stats for the year, and they're just not doing very good as a whole. Part of it could be blamed on injuries, but a good portion of it is just them not being very good. They're 31st in points per game. They're 32nd in yards per game. They're 32nd in sacks allowed. Like, they're just not a very good team overall. So their offense should be containable. I will say, though, again, if Allen Robinson decides that this is his breakout game, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Because a lot of their offensive woes have been because they haven't been able to rely on Allen Robinson like they have in the past. For whatever reason, they're either not trusting him, or, Justin Fields isn't trusting him, or he's maybe just getting blanketed a different way, or he's just not as good anymore. Not sure. But if he gets going, it's going to be a little bit harder to contain the offense.
What's your biggest concern about this from the defensive side?
On the defensive side, looking at their team, I guess it would probably be the speed. I'm not particularly scared of Marquise Goodwin, Jakeem Grant, or Brashad Perriman. I guess what I'm alluding to is not more of the speed, it's more of the explosive plays, as you had pointed out. Because if you give up the explosive plays, like, you're going to end up losing to a really bad offense. And the speed is kind of what gets you those explosive plays a lot of the time, I feel like. So that's what I'm worried. I'm not sure I'm particularly worried about any one player. If David Montgomery gets a full workload, that would be my concern. I'd be worried about David Montgomery, but I'm not sure he's going to get a full workload.
We're not expecting that.
Yeah, we're not expecting that. Maybe he'll be ready, and he will, but that's not my expectation.
All right, so let's flip to the other side, and now let's talk injuries. Let's talk about what's going on there. For Pittsburgh, they will be again without tight end Eric Ebron. B.J. Finney with a back injury is questionable. He was originally limited on Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
and then on Friday didn't practice, and then returned in a limited fashion today, not quite at Sunday yet. So he's questionable. I have to imagine that with the interior offensive lineman and with Zach Banner potentially being an extra lineman, they might deactivate him. I mean, we'll see. And kicker Chris Boswell carries a no designation. The Steelers signed free agent Josh Lambo, who had previously been with the Jaguars, lost his job to former Steeler Matthew Wright, so kind of coming full circle here. But Josh Lambo remains on the practice squad, but it sounds like Boswell's all set to go, thankfully. And also Minka Fitzpatrick had a foot injury on Saturday that caused him to sit out of practice, but apparently it's nothing too serious because he is not listed with the designation on the injury report. So very good as far as the Steelers injury report goes.
Yeah, I found it weird that Minka was put on the... I can't remember the last time that happened where a player appeared on the injury report on the last day and then didn't get a tag. Felt very weird, you know? Like, do you remember that happening, like, any time?
Not when it happens on not when it happens like the last day of practice, if that makes sense. Usually it's like the day before or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I found it weird. I don't know. The last day of practice, and he sat out for a apparent foot injury, and he's still okay though. I don't know. Very, very, very weird. That's why I pointed it out, because I wanted to talk about it, that happened. I still want to monitor it in case something changes on that regard.
And then on the other side, my goodness, it's busy on the other side. The Bears are missing a lot of key pieces.
Yeah, the biggest definitely being Khalil Mack. He was expected to be out when he got hurt 2 weeks ago, but officially out for this game. That is a huge loss and a big win for the offensive line, the Steelers' offensive line going into this game. Khalil Mack is a very scary edge rusher. He's very good at his job, similar to Myles Garrett. Then they have Nick Foles, who had an illness/personal problem, and he is out. J.P. Holtz, we already covered. Damian Williams has a knee injury. He is out. They're rolling with David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, as we pointed out. Another big one, another big loss is Eddie Jackson. He has a hamstring injury, and he is doubtful. He didn't practice in any capacity all week, so there is a good chance he does not play, and that would immensely help the Steelers because he's a pretty solid safety back there. Then another defensive piece they're missing is Alec Ogletree with an ankle injury. He is questionable. He didn't practice in any capacity all week either, but apparently his chances are a little bit better. He is technically a starter next to Roquan Smith, though, so that would also be a loss for their defense.
Man, a lot of key pieces missing there, at least if you want to include Eddie Jackson since he's doubtful. What a what a tough loss for the Bears not having a guy like Khalil Mack again. I know that he hasn't been quite the same player the last season and a half here, but that guy is still one of the premier pass rushers in this league over the past decade. And not having to face him, I'm sure Dan Moore is gonna, Dan Moore and Chukwuma Okorafor are feeling a little bit better about it this week. Mack usually plays on the strong side though, right?
No, I'm pretty sure he's actually the weak side linebacker.
They do move him around, though.
Yeah, he's moved around. He's one of those elite players that just kind of goes wherever he wants.
Eddie Jackson, I've seen reports from some beat writers that have said that he isn't quite the player that he once was, but he's obviously still a good player. And Alec Ogletree is one of their starting linebackers. So 3 starters potentially missing from this defense in this game. A defense that, when healthy, I feel like maybe isn't a top tier defense, but is still probably a top 10 unit.
Yeah, I think they're doing well. Their statistics right now are pretty solid. So I think that kind of points them being a top half of the league unit with how well they've done there. They're breaking, which is unfortunate. They have a lot of points given up per game, but might not all be on them. Turnovers play into it, but they're in yards per game. They're 14th, top half of the league, and it's because they're good at shutting down the pass primarily. They're 11th in the league in pass yards per game. Not as good with rushing yards, but they have a lot of sacks to make up for it, and not really a turnover defense, kind of like the Steelers so far this year. But as a whole, they're playing pretty solid. It's tougher when they don't have Khalil Mack, though. Even if he's not playing as high a level as he has in years past, he's still playing at a high level, and so losing him is tough. I mean, they still have Akeem Hicks and Robert Quinn as pass rushers, which should help them, but not having Khalil Mack is a pretty big blow.
Yeah, on the other side, they still have the likes of Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn, like you mentioned, Bilal Nichols, Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks. There's still some talent there. Tashawn Gibson.
Yeah, Danny Trevathan is backing up Alec Ogletree. Yeah, honestly, the switch between Danny Trevathan and Alec Ogletree is, to me, lateral.
Negligible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's not forget, former Steelers first-round pick Artie Burns, still with the Chicago Bears.
Legend. Absolute legend.
It would be so like the Steelers to have him have like a pick 6 in this game.
It really would be. Jesse James catches a touchdown and Artie Burns pick 6. Hell yeah.
Oh, goodness. But, man, this is still going to be a difficult team to move the ball against. I still think that they're a league average defense with the personnel they have. The Steelers' offense has done a better job running the ball of late. Their defensive front minus Khalil Mack and possibly minus Alec Ogletree, even with Danny Trevathan, I think is one that you can still run successfully with. Maybe not putting up huge numbers just like against the Broncos, but I still imagine this should be another game where the Steelers have a 50+ % success rate like they have, I think, for the better part of the last month now.
Yeah, this team, their weak spot has been against the rush, so I do expect Najee to have a solid game in this one, especially with the guys that should be out for the Bears.
And then as far as the other issues with this offense, Austin, we've talked about it all year. They got to start making some more explosive plays, especially with pushing the football down the field and connecting with more consistency, because it just has not been there this year.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Just targeting the middle of the field a little bit more, but deeper. So I feel like the targeting the middle of the field short hasn't been an issue. Ben's hit quite a bit there, but over the 10-yard mark has been a struggle in the middle of the field. I feel like it's a place you kind of have to attack now. Like, their cornerbacks are actually pretty solid. I mean, their defensive backs are really solid as a whole. They're not like household names yet, like Jalen Johnson and Kendall Vilder, but they're playing really well together. And I mean, without Eddie Jackson, assuming he doesn't play, that does hurt their secondary a little bit, but I still think you should attack the middle of the field a little bit in this one. It's not going to happen. Maybe one catch over the middle of the field over 10 yards if we're lucky, but attacking the cornerbacks have been playing really well this year for the Bears.
We had an explosive pass over the middle last week. Well, maybe not down the field, but
Gentry.
Which, by the way, that guy is turned into a really awesome number 2 tight end. I'm really happy for that.
Yeah, he's solid. He's definitely going to be good going forward, I think, after this season. I think he could stay instead of Eric Ebron.
Which, with Ebron, do you think there's any situation with Gentry playing well that Ebron could ever be inactive?
I definitely think there's a chance. To me, though, I really like... it's not something the Steelers run ever, because they basically only run 2 active tight ends on game day, but I love 3 tight end sets, just in general. Just 3 tight end sets just make me happy and excited. Like, I don't know, like fullback sets kind of make me happy and excited as well. I like those heavy sets where it's like if you have 3 good tight ends, 3 solid tight ends, you could still pass out of it. And then, like, that's what I envision. I in my head, I see Pat Freiermuth, Zach Gentry, and Eric Ebron later this year running a 3 tight end set with Najee in the backfield to make it think it's a run. You run a tight end attack, which is basically they're all lined up on the same side, and they run, like, one runs a post, one runs a deeper post, and the other kind of runs a vert.
You've thought very specifically about this.
I have. Part of it is because when I play Madden, right? I play Madden. I'm sorry, I have a problem. It's really shitty.
Ooh.
It's a really shitty game. I run a lot of 3 tight end sets. I love running. Funny how I view real life running backs and stuff. I run a lot of Madden, but I also run a lot of 3 tight end sets because of that, and it makes me excited and happy. And I've been thinking about that, like, man, I wonder if the Steelers should ever do that, because I've been doing it, but that doesn't mean it's gonna work in real life. But I still have a place in my heart other than from Madden for 3 tight end sets. It's not just because of Madden.
We could talk a lot off the air about all of our tendencies in video games, because I do very similar things like that too. But it's funny, Ben Roethlisberger, some of his better games and career statistics, at least in the early 2010s, came with a lot of heavier personnel, like 22 or 21 personnel. Really makes you think that... how the game has transitioned away, but he really succeeded a lot with that kind of personnel on the field back in the day.
Yeah. Might be nice to get back to it. I don't know. It really would be cool, though, if we saw a game where they had all 3 active. I truly think that...
Oh, they do. They did. Remember in week 1? They have had them active, all 3 of them, at times this year.
I forgot
They just
about
haven't run... They just haven't run a lot of situations where all 3 of them have been on the field. Would you also be surprised to know they haven't run a single snap with... the tackle eligible yet this year?
Yeah, that makes sense, because I feel like they just don't want to put Joe Hagan at all. They're trying to keep him off the field as much as possible. Possible.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't tried it yet with Zach Banner. They said it's on the table, but we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, running with a heavier package with a guy that's experienced in it, with like Zach Banner, seems like a no-brainer. It's just a game plan that they either don't think Zach Banner's ready yet, or they don't want to run it yet. They don't think Banner's worth it just for that kind of play alone.
True or false, the Steelers will have a run success rate of 50% or higher this week.
True. Hammered home, true.
I agree. How many explosive plays in the passing game does this team need?
In the passing game, or...
Well, I mean, do you think they're going to get an explosive run?
They might. I think they need four explosive plays.
Will they get 4? True or false?
Yes. What do you think?
I'm going to put it at 3. This feels like a... No, actually, you know what? No, I forgot. I have a bold prediction tied to it, so I can't reveal that information just yet.
You can't reveal that information. Okay, fair.
I do think this Bears defense could be had, but I do think a lot of it's going to be based off of explosive plays and getting turnovers from the defense. I could envision a scenario where the Steelers defense creates a bunch of turnovers, and if they do that, I feel like this could be a game where the offense punches things in, because I feel like the Bears defense will be demoralized based on the way that their offense has played this year. It feels to me like it's either going to be a a really close, probably Bears win, or a not a blowout Steelers win, but a double-digit point win for the Steelers. I feel like it's either or.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. Because, I mean, basically, we're going to find out if the Bears offense can really get going in this game. If they can't get going, like, early on, they're basically not going to be able to do much for the game. At least I feel that way. And then I think the offense is going to break through. Like, I feel like it could be a game where it ends up, like, you know, like, it's 0-0 through the first, like, quarter and a half. Kind of like the Browns game. The Browns game kind of started that way. Ish. But with not a lot of scoring. But, yeah, I feel like it's going to either be a close Bears win or the Steelers win by a comfortable margin.
All right. End of the day, though, this offense, it's got to start making big plays. I've seen a lot of things where it's like, oh, the Steelers should start building in more things to their offense. I don't know. I don't know if you want to mess with what's been working, and I know they're not scoring a lot of points, but you need these wins. I think you just got to do what you got to do to win these games and then go from there.
Yeah, I agree. You gotta win the ones that are here because it only gets harder down the road. You got some big opponents coming up later. You got Baltimore twice. You got Kansas City later. You got Tennessee, even without Derrick Henry. You got the Chargers. Some big opponents, and then you have to see the Bengals one more time and the Browns one more time. That's a lot of talent.
And I know they play the Lions next week, but the Lions are coming off a bye. That game's probably going to be closer than people are thinking right now.
That game affected how I picked this game.
Does it?
It did. It did when I picked this game, yeah.
That's kind of funny because usually a game earlier would affect how you'd pick a game later, not the other way around.
Nope. Not in this case.
Well, speaking of picks, are you ready to move on to that aspect of it? Oh, by the way, Jakeem Grant, the player the Bears traded for a few weeks ago, he is their primary returner now. So that's how he's been installed. He's been solid.
Okay. I know he has a fumbling problem, kind of like McLeod, so we'll see if the Steelers can take advantage of that on special teams.
Indeed. Shall we get to our picks?
Sure. I could go ahead and start. So I'll just go over everything. I'll start.
Well, I was going to say, did you want to cover Thursday Night Football real quick?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I forgot about the Week 9 stuff. Yeah, we'll do that first before the X Factors and bold predictions and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Well, man, that Thursday night game, I got to see, like, basically from the point the Jets started scoring in what was garbage time and then turned into not really garbage time for a second there and then became garbage time again. But the Colts got out to this huge lead. Mike White got hurt, and it looked like the Colts were just going to crush, and they were ahead. What were they ahead? Like 40-something to like 18 for a while. So Josh Johnson, the long-tenured veteran who's been had 15 different stints with NFL, XFL, and AAF and CFL teams. Dude's been everywhere. And he comes in off the bench, throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And even though the Colts were, just not, I don't know if you want to say lollygagging per se, but they helped the Jets make that a game. And then all of a sudden the last drive became really important for anyone that was gambling. And while we weren't particularly gambling, we do make our picks, and I took the Colts and I was pretty confident about it, and then all of a sudden that last drive I'm like, this team's really gonna lose. Like they're really gonna lose my pick for me. And I'm sure you were feeling quite the opposite, like holy shit, they're actually gonna do this. And then the Jets went full Jets on you, because the Jets can't do full jetting without making you think that they can do it and then just ripping your heart out.
Yeah, it was like 42-18. I'm like, I was texting the group chat, like, I'm never picking the Jets plus the points ever again. This is just like last year when by week 3 last year I was like, I am never picking the Jets ever again. And then they started battling back in and like, holy crap, they might get a backdoor cover. Holy crap, they started driving down the field, and then that happened, unfortunately. But I think we should crown Josh Johnson MVP because he threw so well against a full defense against the Colts, and only lost because his defense gave him more points. I mean, we should only treat him fairly, just like we treated Lamar Jackson, correct? MVP.
Hey, he did it with no practice time too.
No practice
Just
time
helping you out.
against a full defense. That's my MVP right there. Absolutely impressive. Okay, but to be real, I actually was impressed with Josh Johnson. I thought he had.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was a great game from him to battle back, and that interception sucks because it wasn't even like, oh, this is a really bad interception. No, it got tipped at the line. So tough.
Any chance for the Colts to make the AFC South the race here? That there's a good chance they'll pick up a game here with the Titans playing the Rams.
We'll have to see if it comes down to the wire. Them losing twice kind of puts them out of it. I know that the Titans don't have Derrick Henry anymore, but I don't know that if they split, we're having a much different conversation right now because the vibes of the Titans are completely different if they lose and then also lost Derrick Henry.
There's I think the hill is still too steep. Ask me again in a couple weeks. If the Colts can beat either the Bills or the Buccaneers, or can somehow pull off both, then we're having another conversation. But I think it's got to be one of those things where it's like one week at a time, right?
Yeah, 1 week at a time.
All right. Into the regular 1 o'clock slate of games. Huge AFC North game. The Browns visiting the Cincinnati Bengals in the Battle of Ohio. The Bengals are 2.5-point favorites. Man. What an interesting game. Austin, you said you wanted to take the lead on these. You can go right ahead.
Oh yeah, I could take the lead on them. So for the Browns and Bengals, I think that the Browns are going to take a victory in addition by subtraction. I think that without OBJ, Baker Mayfield's going to play better, and I think I'm going to pick the Browns plus 2.5 and to basically win outright in this game. I think that they have it in them. I mean, they get back to the rushing attack. There's a little bit less distraction in the locker room, at least for now. I think that they come in and win it. What do you got for this game?
I also have the Browns winning this game outright. I just don't think any team in this division is going to go 3-0. I think every team is destined to be 3-3 in division play this year. So the Browns not going to fall to 0-2. They need this one more than the Bengals, who aren't reeling per se, but I think the Browns are more desperate, and this will bear itself out on Sunday. So I like the Browns to win.
Broncos at Cowboys. Dallas is favored by 10 points in this game. There's some talk that Dak might not be ready. It sounds like he's gearing up. And then there's also Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, both banged up. Amari Cooper is expected to play. CeeDee Lamb is also expected to play, but CeeDee Lamb got hurt a little bit later in practice. So there are concerns that they both could possibly miss it, but it doesn't sound like it. So I have the Cowboys covering this game. What do you got?
I do too. No Garrett Bowles again for the Broncos, and they've got a number of players questionable, including Albert O and Malik Reed. The Cowboys are a team that is playing really well right now. They just beat an average Vikings team with their backup quarterback, and beyond that, this just has the feelings for the Broncos of a team that was selling, and it feels like that they're ready to almost pack it in based on the fact that they just traded away Von Miller. So I like the Cowboys to cover even a 10-point spread here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Texans at Dolphins. Miami is favored by 5.5 points. Tyrod Taylor is coming back for the Texans and is starting. I have the Texans plus 5.5. What do you have?
The Tyrod Taylor effect switched this pick for me. I would have picked the Dolphins, but I do think this team is better with Tyrod Taylor. It's just a question of can he stay healthy. And if he can, I like the Texans to win this one straight up too.
Yeah, I'm starting Tyrod Taylor in fantasy this week more than likely. So
he's a good quarterback.
I think he is. I'm putting hope in it. He's done really well against the Dolphins in the past. Obviously, Tyrod was with the Bills for a while, so he got to play the Dolphins a few times. But yeah, I have to roll with him because Kyler Murray might not be playing, so that's tough. Falcons at Saints. Saints are favored by 6 points in this game. I don't know. Give me the Falcons plus 6. I know what your pick is.
Yep, still picking against the Falcons, so I'll take the Saints. No further comment needed.
Mm-hmm. Raiders at Giants. The Vegas Raiders are favored by 3 points after all the drama going on this week. They got a lot going on. I'm still going to pick them to cover. I just don't like the Giants as a team. I'm not there yet. What do you got?
If there hadn't been all this stuff going on with the Raiders, I think it would have been really easy to pick the Raiders. And my initial gut said to do so, but I decided not to. Look, the whole Gruden resigning thing was different from what they're dealing with right now. Him being forced to resign from his position kind of let the team rally around him. This is a different situation. Their teammate and friend made a horrible decision and killed someone and her dog. And to me, that's a whole different thing to cope with and rally from, on top of the fact that he's facing 40 plus years in jail. And I think that's a whole lot different than dealing with a guy that's being ejected from the building being disgraced for things that he has said and done in the past. Those are two different things to me. I think it's going to be harder for the Raiders to pull together in this one, so I'll take the Giants plus the points here, but I could go either way on this one, to be honest with you.
Patriots at Panthers. New England is favored by 3.5 points. The Panthers love disappointing me, and therefore I'm giving them another chance to do so. I'm picking the Panthers plus 3.5 because Christian McCaffrey is back and starting for this game. Apparently, it sounds like he is actually getting a full Christian McCaffrey workload. Might not be, but that's what it sounds like for now. So I'm going to pick the Panthers plus 3.5 so that they could disappoint me again this year. What do you got?
I still see Sam Darnold saying that he's seeing ghosts against this Patriots defense, so I like the Patriots to cover here.
Okay. Bills at Jaguars. Bills are favored by 14.5 points over a lowly Jaguars team. I got Buffalo covering. I don't really got much to say.
The Jaguars have won one game on American soil since 2019. I might pick the Bills if the line was 30.
Dang. That's a college line.
I was going to say, this is my lock of the week, by the way. I forgot to mention.
Dang. That's like Oregon playing Stony Brook.
Tough.
Vikings at Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 6 points in this game. I have the Vikings plus 6. I'm still not on the Ravens train. I'm going to pick against them anytime I think that it's reasonable. Close.
Really interesting. Really interesting because the Vikings are a team that you could tell me will win this game, and I'd be like, yeah, I could see that. But they could also lose a game to Cooper Rush, too. They're like the Steelers of the NFC, but also far less impressive throughout the past decade, too. The Ravens are coming off a bye. Even with their offensive line issues, the Vikings also lost Danielle Hunter for the year, so I call that a wash in this one. So give me the Ravens here to cover.
We're moving to the 4 o'clock set of games, 4:05, Chargers at Eagles. Chargers are favored by 1.5 points. Vegas really liked the Eagles' blowout win against the Lions last week, I'm assuming, for this line, and they don't like the Chargers being in a slump. I'm picking the Chargers to cover, and this is my lock. I think that they're a much better team than the Eagles, and both teams have been trending in different directions because obviously the Eagles just blew out the Lions, and the Chargers have lost some pretty bad games now. So with the Ravens and last week's loss to the Patriots, I'm still picking them to cover and lock.
Are we? That game is at 4 o'clock?
Is it not?
It is at 4 o'clock. Shame on the NFL because their injury report says the game's at 1 p.m. So shame on the NFL.
ESPN
again.
had it better. It plays at 4:05 if you're Eastern time.
Ridiculous. I came really close to picking the Eagles here, but I am going to take the Chargers to cover. Man, this team really feels vulnerable right now, and the Eagles are sneaky sometimes, but I still do trust Justin Herbert far more than I do Justin Fields.
Me too.
Jalen Hurts.
I trust them both better than both.
Yes.
So that's fair. Packers at Chiefs. This is moving to 4:25. Kansas City is favored by 7. I can't pick the Chiefs anymore. It's just their defense is going to literally allow any team to stick with them. And if Jordan Love has any sensible, good quarterback play in him, he's going to be able to keep this a game. I'm picking the Packers plus 7. I just can't. I can't pick Kansas City anymore. It's not. We're in 2021, not 2020. I said I'd give them one last chance against the Giants last week. They blew it. I'm picking Packers plus 7.
So the addition of Melvin Ingram doesn't move the needle?
It does not.
By the way, we didn't touch on that. Do we want to get to that real quick?
Yeah, we could talk about that. Melvin
All right,
Ingram's
so the
trash.
Yeah, the Steelers did end up dealing Melvin Ingram the day of the trade deadline to the Chiefs for a conditional 6th-round pick. That would be the Baltimore Ravens 6th-round pick because the Chiefs did not have their own. But it's conditional, and we don't know what the conditions are. So I guess it's a good thing the Steelers got anything for him. But, man, what is it with the Steelers and these players that they're not clearly defining their roles? We saw it with James Harrison. We saw it with LeGarrette Blount. And now we see it with Melvin Ingram. It just feels like if the Steelers communicated better, all this frustration could have been avoided.
Yeah, probably. Tell Melvin Ingram before he signs, hey, we really like this Alex Highsmith guy. You're going to be here for depth and rotational purposes. Are you okay with this? And then go from there. If he didn't want it, oh well. That's how it is. But now, I guess the Steelers are lucky to get anything for him. They got a 6. I'm hoping, because we don't know if the condition's bad or good. We don't know if it's like, oh, if he plays this amount of snaps, you actually get a 5th instead. Or if it's like, oh no, wait, this could turn into a 7th or no pick. Like, we don't even know that. We don't know what changes the pick. There's a chance that it could relate to compensatory picks. It might be that the Steelers get the later 6th-round pick or the earlier 6th-round pick, depending on if Kansas City qualifies for a compensatory selection in the 6th round. I'm not even sure they do. It's just something that teams do sometimes, though. It would then be Baltimore's or compensatory pick if that is the condition. But we'll have to see if we ever get the condition until maybe after the season. I don't even know. It might come a little bit later. We might never find out.
And just a few months after the Steelers had Quincy Roche, Jameer Jones, and Cassius Marsh, none of them are on the roster, and instead we have one Taco Charlton.
We do have one Taco Charlton. Cassius Marsh is now with the Bears practice squad. He's giving them TJ Watt secrets.
You gotta love that gamesmanship.
Yeah.
All right, so back to that game, though, the Packers and Chiefs. This is going to be the first of 2 straight games where Jordan Love throws for 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. It's going to happen. He's coming for that job, man.
Might be. He's trying. He's got to prove himself.
I'd love it.
I would love to see that.
Give me all the Jordan Love energy just long enough for Aaron Rodgers to retire, and then he can suck. I do like the Packers here. I just can't see the Chiefs winning by more than 1 score against any team at this point.
Agree wholeheartedly. Cardinals at 49ers. San Fran is favored by 3 points. Quite the risk. NFC West is always weird. Don't know if both Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are game-time decisions. I don't think Murray's going to play. I really don't. That's why I'm starting Tyrod. He suffered an ankle sprain that's like a 1 week to 3 week injury. I just don't think it's smart to get him back on the football field, risk injuring it worse. Now, I mean, it's possible because he's playing on a long week. They last played on last Thursday, so it has been a little bit over a week, but I just don't think he's there. I'm still taking the Cardinals +3. I think that they're still going to win even if Kyler Murray doesn't play. I'll take that risk. What do you got?
I actually like the 49ers to cover here. George Kittle's coming back, plus the injury to Kyler Murray. I do think this could be a sneaky game where the 49ers are able to win this one, and we'll do it with a late field goal. So I like the 49ers in this one.
Something else to just put out there. AJ Green is on the COVID list, and Rodney Hudson's off IR, so he's their starting center, and they don't have AJ Green and might be without DeAndre Hopkins.
Maybe they'll have receivers that look for the football now.
Maybe.
Actually, that's not a shot at DeAndre Hopkins, just AJ.
Just AJ. Now, Sunday Night Football, we got the Titans at Rams. Tennessee is... Oh, why did I have Tennessee -7? Tennessee is not favored by 7. The LA Rams are favored by 7. I have the Titans +7. That being said, I have a weird suspicion about them that they're going to be able to redefine their offense even around this. Good coaches can do it. With the personnel they have, a good coach could do it. I'm going to believe in Vrabel. I'm gonna say that the Titans can at least keep it within 7, even without Derrick Henry.
I just think that the Rams have too much talent on defense, especially minus Derrick Henry now, for the Titans to be able to stay within a touchdown. I do think that they'll show well enough offensively to make it competitive, but I do think that the Rams will have enough to win this one by 10 in the end. So I like the Rams to cover.
All right, so that wraps up the Week 7 wins. So now we can go over our X Factors, bold prediction, and final score. So do you want me to start or do you want to start?
Go ahead and start. Take it away.
Sure. So, starting with X Factors, I got Dan Moore or the left tackle in this game. I don't know. Maybe Dan Moore played himself out of a spot. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it's going to be Dan Moore. Akeem Hicks is still going to be a challenge against this team, and I think that him protecting the blind side a little bit better in this game compared to when he versed Myles Garrett. It's going to be a big deal. On defense, I went outside the box a little bit, chose Keith Butler. I just want the pass rush to be pass rushers in this game. The Bears' whole line isn't very good. Attacking him that way, getting pressure should be fine. Don't sink the pass rushers into coverage, especially if you don't really have to. It's just kind of unnecessary in this game. Try to let them hit home as often as possible. Keep Justin Fields running and scrambling and trying to save his own life. So my defensive X factor is going to be Keith Butler. As for my bold predictions, I have the Steelers defense getting 4 turnovers in the game. I have the Steelers offensive line allowing no quarterback hits. And then my third one was that Arthur Millette records his first ever pick with the Steelers. And I think that's kind of fair. I just wanted to rectify that because he only has 2 career picks through his first 4.5 seasons in the league. I think that even though it's only 1 pick, I think it's still pretty fair, especially with him not getting the most playing time with like Trey Norwood and other guys there. And then my final score prediction. As I said, the Lions game affected this. I was kind of bouncing back and forth. I kind of saw the Bears winning it. But the Steelers are going to win, and they're going to win in a decent margin. They're going to win 21-9, and that's because they're going to set up to lose to the Lions next week. It's going to be a fucking awful loss. Yeah, I feel it. I feel it coming. The Steelers are going to win solid here, even though 21-9 is not amazing. It's not a blowout, and then they're going to lose to the winless Lions team. So, it's the setup for sadness. The circle of sadness to start spinning again. Okay, then you could run through all your stuff.
You just had to talk about next week already?
Yeah, I had to. It affected how I picked in this game. I was thinking about it. It's like, are the Steelers going to blow this game or the next game? And I'm like, it makes way too much sense to blow next game instead.
We're on to Cincinnati.
We're on to Cincinnati.
My X Factors are as follows. First, on offense, I have Chase Claypool. We've talked a lot about the Steelers' offense's inability to create explosive plays consistently enough. A lot of that starts with Chase Claypool, who I think has not played very well this season. And though it's not all his fault, he was drafted to make big plays, skying to make big-time catches, comeback catches, and he hasn't made many of them this year. Last week he did have one. It was the start of possibly something good. We need to see more plays like that from him. Otherwise, this offense is not going to make the plays it needs to in order to win consistently. On the other side, I have Devin Bush, who had a really bad play on the Dearness Johnson touchdown last week, but besides that was playing, I thought, pretty well. And he's facing a peer on the other side in Roquan Smith, who was drafted with a high draft pick the year before he was. And that's a guy that many people wanted the Steelers to take, myself included, but obviously he didn't last that long. So the two guys going head-to-head, you want to see the Steelers draft pick perform better than a Roquan Smith, so the onus is on him. My bold predictions are as follows. I have the Steelers finishing with 9 sacks on defense and forcing 4 turnovers. Offensively, I have the Steelers finishing with 400 total yards and 6 explosive plays. And that has led me to picking the Steelers to win 30-13 and covering a 6-point spread. This has the feelings, like we said earlier, of either a close Bears win or a Steelers blowout win. I feel like the Steelers defense is going to have a pretty good job containing Chicago and Justin Fields in this one. I just haven't seen enough from the Bears to suggest that they can produce enough offensively. And on the other side, Pittsburgh, I know their offense hasn't been great, but I do feel like this is a game where the Steelers defense will finally force a bunch of turnovers, and this is the game where the Steelers offense cashes in. So that's why I have Pittsburgh winning big in this one, Austin.
I think that's totally fair. I think you kind of blew me out of the water with your bold prediction. 9 sacks and 4 turnovers? Sheesh, I only went with 4 turnovers. I respect it, though.
I decided to go quite big on the bold, like extra bold this week, because I was like, I don't know, feel like I had to step it up.
I respect it, man. That's super bold.
All right, well, I think that wraps things up, and The great thing about previewing on Saturday is we are 13 hours. Wait, what time is it? It's almost midnight. Yeah, so we are currently just over 13 hours away from the first kickoffs.
Yeah, exciting. I do like me some football. It's going to be a non-stressful Sunday because the stress comes on Monday.
Can't wait. All right, well, in the meantime, thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. As you probably already know, if you have any questions or you want to offer criticisms or critique, we are always looking for feedback. Please email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com and check out our episodes posted on YouTube under the name Stronger Than Steel Podcast and on Anchor at anchor.fm/strongerthansteel. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, Austin, thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with Austin and John. I'm assuming we're probably going to have to do separate episodes next week, given that we won't be able to record right after the Steelers game on Monday. So I guess we'll play it by ear. But until next time, thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with Austin and John.
Bye, guys. Let's go Steelers. Let's go Vikings this week. And I guess let's go Browns? ?
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.